Don't you just love it when you do an 8 a.m. show and then more news breaks that's just making you feel, as I said earlier, warm and fuzzy inside? Nothing like some Arsenal injury news to spark the match, if you will, from the Arsenal fan base. Well, we're going to get some of their thoughts in today's Arsenal phone-in show. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys and girls for another episode of what is our Arsenal phone-in show. We've not done a dedicated phone-in show in a little while, and I haven't done a show in the evening, allowing our North and South American listeners perhaps to jump on. We're going to try to get some new faces on. We're going to try and get some thoughts and theories and kind of, I suppose what's the right word, therapy, I guess, as well. And to do that, I'm going to be joined for however long a time with a guest for this show. And it's someone who keeps me very much on the ground. It's Drew from One Football. How you doing, mate? You good, Joel?
Hey, buddy. Yeah, I'm good. I woke up to the news this morning, and it's been fun ever since. So,
Yeah, no one's lost their minds. No one's lost their heads. I haven't seen anyone sending horrible messages to one another on social media as a result of an injury news that's entirely separate from their own lives. None of that has been experienced. But we're going to be getting on some listeners throughout the show today to kind of give their thoughts and maybe ask some questions, and so on and so forth. But Drew, let me just get kind of your initial reaction to the injury to Kai Havertz, which, of course, was, again, as always, scooped by Mr. David Ornstein, reporting today that Havertz is expected to miss the rest of the season with a torn hamstring injury. So go for gold, mate.
and it's tricky because I feel like ask most fans, on deadline day or in January, and all of us kind of wanted, a center forward, especially after Jesus goes down. I think that was totally reasonable for us to expect.
Hmm.
And I think now most fans should rightly be frustrated about the fact that when you fly players too close to the sun in terms of injuries and they get injured, and you could have done at least a little bit to try to mitigate that. And then the worst case scenario happens, and you leave yourself really short on a player who is vital to us tactically. I mean, the club has to take this one particularly on the chin. I don't think that's weird to say. I think that's actually pretty on the mark. What I would say though is I do feel like fans need to still, if they can, be measured because just
Good
listen,
luck with that.
hear me out. I know it's going to be hard, but we know the club tried in January. We know they tried to accelerate for Shesko, but they couldn't get him because Leipzig are resigned to losing him in the summer, but they're not losing him this season given how well their season's going. We know we kind of phoned in for Tell, but we backed away for whatever reason. My suspicion would be maybe he wanted some guarantees we couldn't deliver
Yes.
with. That's just a
Yes.
theory.
Yes.
We know we made that bid for Oli Watkins, and obviously I think paying 20 million over the odds on a player who's about to be 30 when you could get a better long-term player in Sesko for cheaper in the summer made more sense financially. So we didn't proceed with Watkins, and on deadline day there were some rumors that we made a late inquiry on Ferran Torres from Barca, who would kind
Can
of
see
fit
that.
that. Yeah, I
Personally.
caught that on the newswire at work on
Oh,
deadline
there you
day.
go.
I don't know if it's how officially credible because I have to go back and look.
Yeah. I
Um,
did see the late inquiry for not late, but there was kind of like feelers put out about Morata and a loan deal.
yeah, that as
Was
well.
in
So
Milan.
we know the club try what 4 or 5 different players in that window, players who would be of a requisite level that we need for a club that's pushing for Premier League and Champions League. And fans throughout most of the season have been complaining about the fact that they don't like the Raheem Sterling deal because it hasn't worked out. And yeah, it hasn't worked out. And most fans would consider that us scraping the bottom of the barrel for a player who might be a bit past it. So
Mm.
if fans don't want us to scrape the bottom of the barrel at any point, we shouldn't have been doing that in January either because you can still get a body in. But say the Havertz injury still happened, and now you have a player who is going to back him up who just isn't any good. Does that really fix the problem? No, it doesn't really fix the problem. So it's very difficult. But I do think what this does show is that two things for me. I think one, we need to be better at rotating when we can, if we can. But two, we have to get the summer completely spot on, and we can't muck it up. And it's going to be an expensive summer, and I think that's totally fine. I think the club will be able to afford it, but
Mm.
we have to be really diligent at getting that business in and getting it spot on, and it really like ticking all the boxes. But I
Yeah.
do think. Go on.
No, I was just that I think is delivered the measured kind of position on this, and I think that obviously what Arsenal have done in this January is just they've just looked at the summer and thought we can make do with Havertz and this group until then, and get the players that we want to get. If they don't get who they want in the summer, my goodness gracious me! Like the next this upcoming summer transfer window. Like, there's no, I hate the term, but there is no excuses, when it comes to Arsenal trying to get players like this. If they don't get an Isak, which I don't expect, or a Sesko being the other, key alternative, and they don't land that strike, you have to just at that point you're just thinking, what's the point? Like, what's the point at that stage? Of course, there are other areas. There's going to be big turnover. Partey, Jorginho, Tierney. I don't think Tomiyasu will leave now because of the injury situation. Neither will Jesus, but they are expected to move on and won't be available anyway. Of course, you've got Zinchenko. I think will probably be moved on. Kivior, I think, could probably go as well. We've got to get a backup goalkeeper during the summer transfer window as well. There's huge swathes of work that needs to be done in that window, and they could have taken some of that off if they'd have done it, in January, if those players were there. They've deemed them not. It's my issue. I haven't got an issue with Arsenal not spending, big money on a player in January because, to my knowledge, it wasn't possible to do that. My issue is that we didn't find short-term solutions to plug the gaps that we absolutely needed to in case. Now, I don't think if Arsenal sign Morata on loan or even Kolo Muani on loan or any of these kind of loan figures, I don't think they're the difference between Arsenal winning or not winning a league title, because they're not that type of player. But what they did do was cover us to an extent to where we probably would have remained, to an extent as competitive. And I still think we can be competitive, but it's going to be very hard to expect to even remain in second place, I think, at the moment, based upon the players that are available to us for the rest of the season. If Martinelli comes back, if Saka comes back, and we are still in second place, then obviously I'll feel a lot better. And we have managed to stay in touch, despite, of course, being without Saka and being without other players at key points during the season. And we've only managed to be 6 points away with the game in hand that will be played, I think, tonight. The Liverpool game is. So it's just incredibly disheartening. And to make us feel a lot better, we're going to speak to some fans. So let's get Garrett on, who's our first caller. Garrett, mate, how you doing? You good? You well? Of course, listeners will be more than familiar with yourself from our members' Discord server, but tell me what your reactions are at the moment to all of this rubbish.
Yeah, to be honest, when it rains it pours. That's pretty much it, right? I mean, I saw that earlier on. I wasn't that shocked. I to be honest, with how much Havertz has been playing, I kind of did say in the chat before a while ago, I think he will get injured soon. But I just didn't think it'd be a season ender, I think that's a real gut punch for us. It just, as I said, when it rains it pours. Like we just can't catch a break here.
It's the most Arsenal thing in the world to go away for a break, for rest and recovery, and end up losing one of your players for the rest of the season that wasn't injured prior to you leaving. It's the most Arsenal thing ever. There's obviously been a lot of anger, Garrett, directed at different people. Arteta's catching fire, the ownership catching flack as well, the likes of Jason Ato and the board. Where are you kind of in terms of your frustrations, if there are indeed any?
Yeah, look, I think they're kind of equally spread around. In terms of blame, I mean, I can't see why we didn't get a loan. A loan even. I'm not talking about it. I think with Watkins, as kind of Drew said, like spending 60 mil on someone that's almost 30, it was just too much for me. Look, I'm not doubting his quality. We've plenty of chat about it in the Discord. He's a quality player, but 60 mil, for me that was too much. It was too much. So a loan, I was praying on deadline day we got someone in on loan, but just didn't happen. I guess reap what you sow, don't you? I guess this is what's happened now.
Yeah, Drew, just some of your reactions to what Garrett said there.
No, I think Garrett is correct. Also, hey, Garrett, nice to meet you, since you and I have never spoken. I think he's right, and I do feel like most fans would have been fine with a loan, but I will always kind of gravitate back towards the fact that you can't force players to join you, right? Players still have needs of their own, and I'm not using that as an excuse, but it is a reality. And we I mentioned Tell before, but we did make that phone call. It would have been a dry loan for Tell, maybe with the option if Bayern wanted to insert that or whatever, but we backed away from that, and that tells me that it's likely that he wanted to be maybe first choice to get more minutes than we were prepared to offer him, so we backed away because he didn't deem that enough. And I feel like that's something that fans have to remember. So you mentioned Kolomwani before as well, Tom, and yeah, I think he's a player that probably could have helped us, but he's gone to Juve and he's walked into their first 11. Would he be starting over Havertz if he came to us? Probably not. So I feel like that sort of does have to be factored in. I don't think it's an excuse to not go out and get somebody, but I do think it also has to remind fans that when you try to go after loans for players of a certain level, they still have their requirements for themselves too. And if we don't meet their requirements, it doesn't matter what we need at that point. It also matters about what they need, what their club in particular also are prepared to give away. So it's tricky, but I do agree that we did need somebody. I do also agree that I forget which match it was in, but when you saw Havertz just collapse at full time.
Was it? I feel like it was an away game.
Yeah.
Where we were hanging on at one point, like we got the result in the end, and you just kind of
either way. I think when you see that moment, you knew that he needed help, right?
Was it Wolves? I think it was Wolves.
Yeah, I think
Wolves
Wolves
away.
Yeah,
and
when that happened, you knew that he was on at the breaking point in a way. And I talked to Doc Raj before a little bit this morning, and one of the biggest points I feel like is we're not doing anything particularly different than any other club when it comes to our best players. And we know that because we can look at the data and know that. The difference is when we compare, say, Saka to Mo Salah and Erling Haaland, is they get summers off. Saka doesn't get time off anymore. He's first choice for England. He's first choice for Arsenal, a club that are pushing for Premier League and Champions League. England are now every tournament one of the favorites to go on and win it. And he plays, he starts, he plays 70, 80 minutes for England. So now I think the club have to look at that and say, for our best players, we have to maybe find a way to negotiate if they just don't go to needless international breaks. Like, does England need Saka against Uzbekistan? They absolutely do not, or whatever, whoever it might be. And I think the club has to say, we have to also protect our players a bit better because the requirements on modern football are now getting ridiculous. For your club, you're playing 50 matches at the top end. Your best players are going to start 90 to 95% of the matches that are available in the competitions you're going on to try to win. So if we know that, our task now has to be minimize the damage that can potentially be suffered by pulling them out of things that they don't need to be playing in. I think that's the best way we can mitigate it. But the reality is players need 2 or 3 months in the summer to really rest and recoup and then go again next season. Players don't get that anymore. Top players don't get that anymore. When you play for your national team, and you play for a big club, you're playing year round at this point, basically. And I think everybody at the top end is now at risk of suffering these same types of hamstring injuries. And you look at Kai Havertz, who I pulled those numbers yesterday. Up until this season, this injury in particular, he has not suffered more. He has not missed more than a shade under 2 matches per season due to injury since 2017, 2018. He missed a bunch through COVID, through flu or whatever, but he rarely, if ever, has gotten injured in his career. And it's only been minor when he has. So for him to suffer a season-ending injury when we used him just as much last season, it does kind of tell you that we have to do something somewhere, but I don't think we can say we're in particular pushing our players. I think the cumulative match overload on players at this point is a lot. So that's something that we have to actually go in and say, we've got to do a little bit here and there when we can.
Garrett, thoughts?
Yeah, I suppose I agree with Drew, definitely. I think people do kind of take the view that, it's like Football Manager. You can just get someone in a loan. Realistically, if we were going to get a loan, it would be no disrespect to Morata, but he is, I think it's fair to say, past his prime. It would have been someone more like that rather than a Kolomwani Tell, because these guys, why they're leaving? They're leaving a big club to play. They want to be nailed on. They're not going to necessarily come to us if Havertz is there. So I agree with that one. I think that's generally people kind of seem to miss that point. But I suppose one thing I want to put to both of you is with the amount of turnover in the squad and the amount of change, upstairs as well, I just think the summer is looking very, very tricky. Really, because with the fact that the sporting director and just the sheer turnover, the names you listed off, Tom, 2 of our defensive midfielders are leaving.
Yeah.
Defenders, multiple will be leaving. The attack needs a lot of work. It's a lot of work. I say, a striker and potentially, I think, a winger and maybe even some sort of, attacking midfielder. But that's a massive, massive amount to do in one window where, your upstairs board isn't, where, directors aren't just all, there, and you need to get someone in there as well. So I don't know. What do you guys think on that? Because I think that's the biggest point for me, biggest worry.
Yeah, we're told by Arteta, after one of the recent press conferences that they expect a decision made on the sporting director soon. I sincerely hope it's an external appointment that they bring in. I read Sammy's piece in the Mail about how Jason Ato had impressed behind the scenes with his considered approach. I thought the timing. I mean, it's nothing on Sammy. It's just the timing of that kind of coming out after a window where you've signed no players is. I don't think that's going to endear, any fan to that idea, and I'm not endeared to it either. I'm not impressed. Yes, there's other things that are going on. Yes, he's got a big part to play in the Martin Zubimendi deal. That there's a lot of confidence will get done in the summer. But when the chips were down this winter, he hasn't delivered, and not just him, but those behind the scenes in that team, in that recruitment group, have not delivered. So yeah, it gives me, like you, Garrett. There is concern. Because until those players are, with an Arsenal shirt on and holding it up with their name on, there's no guarantees that they are Arsenal players. And, a summer of Zubimendi and Sesko and, a wide player, perhaps another number 2 goalkeeper that we need to sign, and maybe another defender as well, with the turnover of the likes of Zinchenko and Kivior that are going to go through, would be a very good summer window. But yeah, how successful are we going to be at doing that? Remains to be seen. Drew, just very, very quickly, so I'm conscious of the time on what Garrett said there.
Yeah, it's again, I said before, it's a critical summer. I agree with you. I think the appointment needs to be external. I'm actually working on a bit for work about looking at Rosicky and why I think he would be the best fit. I know a lot of people have talked about him. I don't know if I want it to be Jason Ato. I don't know, as someone just put in the chat below, I don't know what exactly he's done to kind of prove himself to get that role. But whoever it ends up being, we're looking at a summer where, before sales, we're looking at 250 million spent. If you just do the rough figures, it's important that we get it completely spot on. And if we actually don't, for the first time and maybe perhaps we all began, I think I'd be actually genuinely concerned about where the product is actually going. But those are deeper thoughts for another time. So, because we're keeping it brief.
Garrett, thank you so much for your call, mate. Really appreciate it. And speak to you soon.
Yeah, pleasure. Enjoy, guys.
Thanks, man. Matt's up next, so let's get Matt on the show. How you doing, mate? You good? You well?
Yeah, good, thank you. How about you guys?
Yeah, not bad. We've been better. But
it's just not the news we want, really.
No, it's not. It's not the news that we wanted at all. The news that we wanted was weeks ago, and it didn't come either. So this is the only news that we're getting right now. Tell me, how you're feeling, mate.
It's just sort of draining this season because it's now become injuries after injuries after injuries, and it's just not getting any better. And we didn't strengthen in January, which I personally think that is the biggest mistake we've probably made in the last 2-3 years. In that, over the last 3 windows, we spent about 100 million, and I think that says it all in how much we really want to win, major honors with this board and ownership and whatnot. Because if you look at Man City, 200 million spent, and I know we're not Man City, I 100% know that. But over the 3 windows that we've had, you can't just spend 100 million and just think, yeah, we're going to win the Premier League like that. It's a tough ask for the current 3 players in the front 3 in Trossard, Ethan, and Sterling to actually remain fit, because Ethan has come back from an injury recently, and just putting that pressure,
it was a hamstring injury as well.
And just putting the pressure and the burden on him, I just don't think is healthy. But if we didn't have Ethan, I'd be very worried in us achieving top 4. Like, I genuinely think he's sort of our guy that can sort of drag us there, and to put that pressure on him again is just ridiculous. But hopefully he can turn into the English Yamal, because I think we're going to need that. In all honesty, I think we're going to need that. Unless Arteta decides to just change things up completely and put Marino at striker, is what I've been hearing.
That's a joke, by the way.
Fair enough. Okay.
I know a lot of people follow AFC Hamza's account, but he is a bit of a wind-up merchant, so just be aware of that.
But even Tierney at left wing is a genuine option, because he's been coming off the bench there, and it just.
I've written I wrote a piece
ridiculous.
today, Matt, about we have to do like our dream 11s before each game, and I've changed the formation. I think I went with like a 3 at the back of Timber, Saliba, and Gabriel. And it was like a 3-5-1-1 formation with like Tierney or Lewis Skelly playing kind of like on the left, Waneri playing on the right, kind of a midfield diamond then of Partey, Rice, Merino, and Ødegaard as kind of that diamond in the middle, and then Trossard kind of as up the top. It's not got much, natural width. We don't even have many natural forwards, available. And I know in people's minds it'll just be like, oh well, he's going to go Trossard, Waneri, Sterling. But I think the problem with doing that is that means you've literally got no senior options of forward players on the bench at all, no senior kind of squad players whatsoever to come off. So it's you would think you go Trossard, Waneri, Sterling, but I'm not.
That's kind of
really
what really
comfortable
scares
in
me,
it.
to be honest, is that we might just burn these players out, and I'd be really worried if we do that, because one is such an exciting talent, and one is a lone player, which I'm not really bothered about, but we'd rather him not get injured because he's actually like a genuine option for us at the moment. And Trossard, I mean, he's just a decent player in terms of his clinical in front of goal and whatnot. But for me, I think it's like maybe tonight's game potentially is not the reason, but maybe I can't think of the word, but it might be the sort of reason as to what happens with this season. If Liverpool do win, that's now 9 points, and we're without Martinelli and Saka for at least another month. And if they do win, maybe we just call the season off and just start sort of protecting these players and just integrating as much youth as possible, really, in terms of just not re-injuring these players that we've got. But it will be really interesting if Everton get a result, sort of the mentality and the feeling around Arsenal then, because I think if they win it, then it's pretty much over, because it's 9 points. We've not got Havertz, we've not got Jesus. Saka and Martinelli are out for another month, and I just don't see where we go from here.
Yeah, I empathise. I do. Drew, thoughts?
So much more to say, is there?
I think Matt summed it up pretty well.
No, I kind of feel like Matt summed it up. I do feel like, because now we're in that position now where every single match we're going to be on eggshells thinking, what happens if Trossard goes down injured or whatever? You know what I mean? And I think, like, again, I think there is a degree of very poor luck here, because, I mean, if you look at it, Liverpool haven't dealt with a serious injury issue all season long. It almost reminds me of, and I had a really good chat with Glenn last night, I think it was, on Blue Sky, when I was kind of laid up, not really feeling great, where he remembers the season Leicester won the Premier League. They used about 15 players all season, didn't suffer a single injury. Sometimes you just get that kind of luck, obviously. And obviously they had less matches because they didn't have European football that season, but the reality is still, if you go through an entire Premier League campaign without suffering a single serious injury to your senior squad, you've done exceptionally well, and you've gone against the grain. So Liverpool have had that benefit this season. And I've often said, if you reverse the roles, if Liverpool had serious injuries this season to Salah, Trent, Konate, McAllister, are they top of the table right now? Probably not. And if we had their injury, like, would we be top of the table? Probably yes. Yeah. And I think that's just kind of the way we have to look at it. And it's just, some of it, I think, is our issue in terms of particularly January, for sure. I think that we take that on the chin. But when it comes to injury, like, and someone put in the chat before, hamstring injuries are actually incredibly common. And sometimes you'll do them even if you're not playing 90 minutes week in, week out, twice a week. Sometimes you can still get a hamstring problem. You can get it in training, even if you're, a second or third choice player in any position. You can just get a hamstring injury in training.
So Reece Nelson used to get them all the time and wasn't playing.
Right, exactly. And I think
he's still out as well.
Yeah, I think he's
another injury to his
hamstring. He is actually. I do believe he's currently not fit for Fulham Europe. So there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a mix of just like the worst possible luck, but also I think that's being compounded by the fact that we made some poor choices in January.
Mm. Matt,
With
thank you
the
so much for your
January
call, mate.
window,
Oh, sorry, go on.
right,
Very quick.
is that I'm not entirely confident we're going to do what's needed in the next window.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
if we haven't done anything this January,
Mm.
we need to do so much more in the summer. I mean, like, we need a lot of players, and I just don't have full belief that
Mm.
the board will 100% back Arteta in terms of the money that he needs to get all of the players that he actually needs this window.
Yeah.
I could probably see maybe Zubimendi, Sesko, and a backup goalkeeper, and that's basically it.
Mm.
And we
I'm
probably
not
need maybe
concerned
another
about
2 or 3.
I'm not concerned about the money necessarily. I'm concerned about the ability of those that have to do the deals being
True.
able to get the deals done for us. That's my concern. We know that if Arsenal want a player, money has been made available, and we saw it, but they do it amongst their own valuations. We saw that this winter with when Villa came to Arsenal with the idea of Ollie Watkins, Arsenal were willing to invest, but only at what they felt the player was worth. I personally didn't want to see Ollie Watkins sign for
Yeah.
Arsenal. I think it would have been a mistake, but the money was made available so that Arsenal could offer what they believed to be the player's valuation for a player that was not one of their, a player they necessarily were really keen on signing, but at the time was potentially a market opportunity at the value that we had for him. But Matt, thank you so much for your call, mate. I really appreciate it.
All good. In
Thanks,
a bit,
mate.
everyone.
Thanks, Matt. Have a good one. Lovely stuff. We've got Seb on my list next, and then Bill's after Seb. Let's go to Seb. How you doing, mate? You good, Joel?
Good. How are you guys? Pleasure being on.
Not bad.
Hey,
Tell
bud.
me where your head's at, mate.
I feel like a lot of the talk right now is thinking about what we could have done. And I think at this point we need to start thinking forward now. It's
Okay.
we're in a position where if you even look at the Arsenal website right now, you look at the forward section, the only one that's left is Raheem Sterling. So my thought process first off was where do we go from here? So I guess for me,
Yeah.
it's I've seen a few articles this morning, and again, I'm still mulling over it, but it's looking at what free transfers are potentially still out there, free agents.
Free agent.
And right now, the
Bring
one
home
that's at the top of
Diego
the
Costa.
list, which I absolutely hate, exactly, is Diego Costa, and I don't think he's a good fit for Arsenal long term. But are we at the point? And I think this is where Arsenal fans really have to put ourselves to is,
Yeah.
are we writing off this season with the intent that next year we have to win it? It's a must win.
Yeah.
Or do we go in the point that we still challenge this year with whatever force we can muster for the next 5 months, and then call it then and restructure everything in the summer? Because like Garrett and Matt and everyone else has said here, there's a lot of work to get done this summer, and it's got to start right now. So whether it's like last year, Liverpool season, halfway through the year, it was all about Klopp leaving, and at that point, it wasn't really about winning the league anymore. I felt.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
I think they announced that when they did to try and emotionally galvanize them towards, because actually, if you look at the table at the same time last season, Liverpool are actually leading the league. They led the league for a lot of the season last season, Liverpool, and then fell away in the second half with Arsenal and City being so consistent. So yeah, but I think you raise a fair point. I mean, the free agent conversation, Drew, is something that a lot of fans are talking about. And I mean, if you go onto the Transfermarkt website, you can actually see all of the centre forwards that are currently available. Names on that list people recognise is Wissam Ben Yedder. Don't want him anywhere near Arsenal.
Yeah.
If you want to know why, go and do your reading. Maxi Gomez is another one, of course. Maxi Gomez, people may recognise, was actually linked to Arsenal a couple of years ago, actually, when he was at Celta Vigo, went to Valencia, didn't do too well, went to Trabzonspor, didn't do great, and now he's left Trabzonspor in the summer, still not found a club yet. Mariano Diaz, people may remember, he, of course, formerly of Real Madrid and Leon, left Sevilla in the summer. Again, he too, still without a club. Diego Costa, as you mentioned, Seb, is also a player. 36 years of age now, Diego Costa, looking for a club after, of course, most recently leaving Wolves. You've got Santi Mina. People may remember Santi Mina, formerly of Celta Vigo, of course, as well. Was very highly rated. Also went, like Maxi Gomez, to Valencia. It seems if you go from Celta Vigo to Valencia, your career's doomed, from what we've learned about today. But they are. Lucas Perez, I see, is on this list as well. Kevin Gamero. We're getting some really classic names up on this list at the moment. But Drew, thoughts on the free agent argument?
I mean, let's just use Diego Costa as an example. To get a 36-year-old Diego Costa up to speed for our system will take weeks. And then you'll maybe only get 1 or 2 appearances from him until people start hopefully coming back. So, I mean, but then you still have him on the books for the rest of the season as a depth option. So, I mean, theoretically, you could maybe just bite the bullet and do it just because we're now at the point where we actually do need bodies for a little while. And then it's a short-term contract, short-term commitment. You're not going to inflate the wage budget doing it. I think it's something we could look into. I just don't know if the club will, but that brings up a great point.
I love this. Olivier Giroud on loan for LAFC while the MLS season. I don't think you can do it though because
an interesting solution.
You can't sign loan players out of a transfer window.
Yeah, that's the only thing. If this was 3 weeks ago, that would have been an absolutely brilliant idea because he's obviously still,
hey, look, he'd score a few set pieces.
he certainly would.
A good goalkeeper too, apparently too. So
yes, yeah, he did famously winning goal for Milan. Did he? He didn't save a penalty. I know he made a save or two. I remember someone making a save.
I think he did.
Yeah, he made like 2 or 3 good saves. Yeah, that game.
Yeah.
I guess
Seb's point of looking forward, I think, is the correct way.
Seb, I'm in agreement with you. I think you need to look forward. Seb, thank you for your call, mate. Really appreciate it, pal.
Yeah, of course. No worries. Cheers.
Thanks, buddy.
Bill is on next. How you doing, Bill, mate? You good, Joel?
Hey, doing as best I can, all things considered.
Indeed.
Yeah, a little annoyed from, the lack of, January transfer window activity because, like we've all said, this was the most predictable thing that could have happened when we signed literally no one that, we were going to get 2 or more injuries to our forward line. But trying to stay as positive as I can. But
I mean, I say this to people. It's not about trying to stay positive. You can be annoyed, upset, frustrated about art. It's okay to do that. I think people, really want to put people into different camps these days, and you have to kind of stick to that. You don't. You got a mind for a reason. You're allowed to change it. I'm certainly very frustrated in how Arsenal have approached the January window, and as a result, have left us and left Arteta high and dry. So, where's your energy, I guess, Bill? Really, in terms of what frustrations you do have.
I mean, it seemed like we were. How do I put this? We were wanting to go for the best option or nothing. Like it didn't seem like there was, we saw in the documentary that Edu had lists of players on a whiteboard, and it felt like we didn't have, the depth of players that we were looking at to go and try and get this winter. It felt like there was 1 or 2 that we felt like, as Mikel said, that aren't just bodies that are going to help us to actually improve the squad. And it felt like we were looking way too long term and not the short term for this season to try and at least, as Elliot's put on the Arsenal Vision podcast, save our floor rather than, just elevate our ceiling.
No, I think that's really well summed up. Drew, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I think it is. I think you and I have chatted before about this, Tom, privately away on WhatsApp and whatever, where the club, I think, view our position now is the only players we want to bring in either elevate the ceiling or elevate the floor. And that's how they're deeming the last part of whatever project, how they want to define it in terms of before going on and really focusing on winning things. And while I can agree and appreciate and with that kind of stance, I do think sometimes you do have to maybe find some wiggle room to maybe loosen the purse strings slightly. And I think January was the time to do that. And again, I said before opening the show, where the minute Jesus went down for the rest of the season, that had to be that moment where you had to go out and definitely find somebody. It didn't have to be a world-class player. It didn't have to be someone like an upgrade on Havertz or whatever. It just needed to be someone that you knew you could trust if Havertz needed a day off, and clearly he needed a lot of days off because now he's going to get months worth of them. So, yeah, I do feel like that That for me is the frustration. And I did say on Twitter and Blue Sky where I wasn't necessarily annoyed that we did bring in a wide player in January. It was center forward that I was worried about, particularly one that maybe could play out wide if he needed to, which I'm necessarily a fan of the profile of the player, but Tell made sense because he can play both center forward and out wide. So that would cover you in both instances. But overall, I do think the club have to take some stick for the fact that I appreciate that I think they're so afraid now of letting standards slip because of what happened in the past that they've become too embedded in that mindset, and I think that actually can be detrimental sometimes. I think we just saw that in January where, yeah, we want to get better, we want to again move forward now to winning things, but sometimes you still do need something. And again, Liverpool is a prime example because last season their cover for Mo Salah was Harvey Elliott. And that's a massive drop off in quality in terms of what you have out on the right. So they went out and got Chiesa. Chiesa has a horrific injury record. He's been injured the season already for them. And that was the risk. The risk was we're going to get an injury-prone player, but at the very least, if he is fit, it's pretty solid cover at that position. It's better cover in terms of ability than, say, Harvey Elliott playing as a right winger. So that was the gamble they took. I feel like we need to be in a position where we could have maybe done something similar, just enough to where we would shore things up in case the worst case scenario happened, and it turns out the worst case scenario happened 3 times. So,
more than 3 times, I think. Bill, thank you so much for your call, mate. Pleasure to see you and speak to you again, and hope you're doing good.
Yeah, of course. Great to see you, Tom, and great to meet you, Drew.
Yeah, good to meet you, buddy. Thanks for coming.
Lovely stuff. Right, Dinny is up next. Hey, Dinny, you good, Joel?
Not bad, Tom. Nice to meet you, Drew.
I think I'm going to clip that. This is the Arsenal fan base.
I was at work when I saw the news. Like my phone popped, and I looked at on the screen. I was like, "All right, oh no!" Like when I was upset, sad, and then I accepted it. I was like, "Wow, what worse can happen now? What's next?"
Yeah.
But then as the days going, I kept on thinking. I'm like, maybe this could be the start of a bad run for us in terms of. I've been seeing like you look at the minutes. Obviously, Kai has played, even though the fan base has been on his case. He's been playing loads of games, but he's not the only one. So is Martinelli, so is Bukayo Saka. And then you look at the performances that you see from William Saliba, that kind of raises your eyebrows. Is he next? You know what I mean? Like, it's just one of those things where how you see these players, they start to have their decline in form, and then after declining in form, it's injuries. So I'm kind of really concerned now. Is we all focusing on the forwards. I'm scared that it's going to start affecting the backline players.
Drew, do you share Dinny's concerns?
I mean, I think there's a concern, but at the very least, the requirements of a center back aren't the same as a requirement from Havertz, who leads the press, who helps in transition. He tracks back to our box and defends.
Yeah.
He goes into the final third. Same thing with Saka and Martinelli. So there's probably a bit more wiggle room there for someone like Saliba, but I do agree that, because God forbid if Saliba went down injured, look what we have to work with the rest of the season. So I think
touch words.
I get the concern of fans now, because I feel like when one bad injury happens, you can kind of cope, right? 2, you're like, man, not great, but we're still fine. But when it happens this many times, the default setting's going to be, well, obviously it's going to keep happening this season, right? So I feel like I feel like fans are rightly concerned. The issue I always personally have, though, is when, like, there's nothing wrong with emotions. I feel like, and maybe it's just me, but I feel like even though you can survey the field and say this is a really bad position to be in, I still feel like some context always has to be applied, right? Some rational thought you have to find it somewhere, right? You can't just be burn the club to the ground, sack Arteta, the board's got to go. Like, you can hold them accountable, but also at the same time, sometimes things also just happen in football.
Go on, Denny.
That's the thing, though. You mentioned accountability. It seems like as fans will say, someone has to, but does it ever? Like now, I was nervous for Mikel, actually thinking, So at the end of the season, if things don't get any better, what is he going to say now? Because at the end of the season, last season, he told the fans and everyone saying, guys, don't accept this. Don't accept this.
Don't be satisfied.
Don't be sorry. Don't be satisfied. Yes. So what you going to say now? Because now there's going to be questions. Is he going to be able to answer those questions? Obviously, he came and said, guys, I need help. All of this. And it never happened. So now it's so many question marks that it leaves you to say, so what are we going to do now? How are we going to shield ourselves now to make sure we don't drop out of the top 4? Because we can defend as much as we want, but you can see now we're even dried up in the set pieces. Everything is just it's a compilation of things. I wish I was you, Tom, to be able to go ask him questions. You know what I mean? Say, okay, Mikel, now we're in this situation. How are we going to adjust and make sure we don't drop off the top 4, let alone use for the title?
And he's got to answer those questions. You know,
overplay 17.
I am looking forward to Friday's press conference. It's going to be an interesting one. As I say, I've got about 16 odd questions in my head rambling around. I think the mistake that people make is obviously they think that they have kind of the perfect question in their mind of what they would ask, but you have to kind of think about what the answer is going to be before you ask the question, because most of the time, if you go at the question in a certain way, he's going to give you very little back. So you have to kind of be quite strategic in how you answer the question.
And also how that question is going to be perceived as well, because a lot of fans will sit and wax lyrical on social media and say, I wish I could ask these questions, but you do realize there are certain questions, if you phrase a certain way, you might not ever get to ask a question again.
Yeah.
As simple as that. So I
think there was a moment, not at Arsenal, but I've seen it at other clubs. You know, where there's been journalists that have not come back to press conferences.
100%.
I've not known it happen at Arsenal.
There's still a measure of decorum and respect you have to bring, despite your frustrations as a reporter, when you're speaking to a manager or a player. And
to be fair, the last press conference, I remember that James Ollie actually from ESPN asked Arteta. He said, you know, could you kind of divulge more about why Arsenal didn't do business? And Arteta was like, you know, there are a number of reasons why we didn't. And James said, what are you willing to divulge some of those reasons? And Arteta said, no, not really. And I'm like, okay, fair enough. Like, if you're not willing to say, but I feel like at this moment in time, like the fan base is at a real low point. I think you've got to give something. You've got to be personable. In many ways. So yeah, there will definitely be. Don't worry, there's going to be questions on Friday from plenty of people, I'm sure about.
Can you at least ask him to can he reassure us that at least whatever we have, are they going to throw the kitchen sink at this, or is he going to go like, you know what I mean? Like, you know what he do? Like when we got that red card, instead of pressing for that goal, we set back. At least if we throw in the kitchen sink at this title and see what we get. You know what I mean? Because what's the worst that could happen? Because we have no players, and and I knew we're not going to get anyone this January. As soon as that Zumpamendi tweet came out, I was like, oh, come on, man.
Arsenal fans, the only ones that could be disappointed when they see Arsenal are set to sign one of the best defensive midfielders on the market.
They stance now. They're saying now he's talking to Real Madrid. I knew, like, oh, come on, what are you doing? Why are you talking about summer stuff? As soon as I saw that, I knew, okay, we're not signing anyone. So I accepted that. I was like, fine. We still got at least Kaya who could do something. We still got midfielders who could do things. But then when they started falling down like flies, it's very concerning. And now there's nothing we can do about it. No free agency is coming in. He's never going to try.
I don't see any on that list that I do. Dinny, thank you so much for your call, mate. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, buddy.
Thank you, mate. Lovely stuff. We've got Temi up next. How you doing, Temi? You good, Joel?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Turn a light on,
the light. Yeah.
Turn a light on, mate.
Yeah, sorry. We have like a power issue in my neighborhood.
Oh,
so
fair enough. I'll let you off. Fair enough, man. Tell me where your head's at. I see a lot of comments in my comment section from you. Not happy.
Yeah. You know, we had this phone-in session last year, and I told you that the season could still be saved, but that the owners have to show ambition in January. Unfortunately, we didn't have that, and now it almost seems like this is a season where everything that should go wrong eventually went wrong. You know, we are talking about, we still have 5 attackers, and suddenly there's 2 players holding their hamstring. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
so
Is Matt,
it's just heartbreaking.
how much is
I'm
there to
actually
say about?
stressed out.
Just quickly, Temmie, how much is there to say about, you said there everything that could go wrong this season has gone wrong. Now Arsenal are still second in the league. What does
Yeah,
that
it's
say?
actually crazy. If we consider all that's happened to Arsenal this season, and and it happens to another team in the Premier League, they are probably like 10th,
Well, look at
like
where Man
mid.
City are. Is probably the answer to that
Yeah,
question.
exactly.
Yeah.
They basically lost Rodri and their season collapsed. We've
Mm.
lost basically our right hand side. That's Saka and Ben White. We've lost all our strikers. Whatever we might think about, their ability to score goals,
Mm.
they are still strikers. And Jesus actually, up until the World Cup, was actually playing really well. So everything that should go wrong has gone wrong. Injuries, suspensions, strange goals. I don't know why that happens to Arsenal. Almost every season, there's always this strange goals that should never go in, and you know.
Yeah.
So it's actually crazy that we are second.
It's the life we've chosen, Temmie. And it's. I mean, Drew, just on what Temmie said there, and that point about kind of because Arteta's taking a lot of heat in the wake of this at the moment as well. I think the heat on Arteta's misplaced, to be honest. I mean, I don't know what more Arteta could really do. I mean, I Darren tweet me on earlier, and I replied. He said, "No, this is as much on the manager as anyone else." And I said, "I don't know what more people want. Like, do you want like a plane being flown across the Emirates by Arteta saying we are short, we need signings?" Because it's effective. That's what he did. Other than doing that in all the press conferences and the interviews that he had. So, am I going mad, or is the energy at Arteta a little bit misplaced, or quite a lot misplaced?
No, I think it's very misplaced. I mean, obviously Arteta's part of the brain trust that makes decisions on signings, but he's been clear that we need signings. He said it multiple times in multiple ways, multiple moments for the last month or two, actually dating back to probably the summer. So
yeah,
I do think. I think fans are probably blaming Arteta for the injuries, but not the lack of signings.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of that. It's that Arteta's played them into the ground. Is the phrase I'm seeing a lot
this
of.
Goes back to what I'm saying. I do think fans need to understand that when you are challenging on multiple fronts at the top level, your best players are going to play. They're going to start 90 to 95% of the league matches. They're going to start every Champions League match unless it's a dead rubber. They won't play the early part of FA Cup, League Cup or whatever, but for the two main competitions, they're playing every week. That's it. That's not a thing that's unique to Arsenal. It's standard. Erling Haaland, without backup until City bought Marmoush, started every single Premier League game and played 90 minutes, I think, in all but one of them. Salah, same thing. Yeah, they got summer breaks, but if they didn't get summer breaks, that wouldn't have changed. City went out and sold their 2 backup strikers this season without replacing them, and they've played Haaland every single chance they've gotten, and they are lucky he also did not get injured, just because of lack of actual rest. So I do feel like it's tough for a manager because he's charged with the fans and the club to go on and lead the project and push us forward to actually challenging. And we've come very close to challenging the last 2 years. We were meant to challenge again this season. But I think if you ask any Arsenal fan, if at this point in the season, if we were sitting second in the league, only 6 points back, and we just finished top 3 in Champions League in the new format, would they have taken that? And they probably would have said yes. And this is after all the injuries that we've suffered. So I do think Arteta you can maybe say maybe he could pull players off 15, 20 minutes earlier, but that only goes a very small way to mitigating actual wear and tear on the body. It doesn't make that much of a difference. The difference is, as I said before, is you need those summer breaks that players just aren't getting anymore.
They're not getting it.
That's the bigger thing, and that's completely out of his hands.
Yeah, one thing I would say that I sometimes feel, last season in particular, there were games where we were like 5 or 6-0 up or 4-0 up, and he's not taken them more. That's the only time that I can really pinpoint and say he's playing them into the ground. Like as Drew says, like this season when Saka has played or when Havertz has played, it's because they've had to play. Like,
Yeah.
and if he doesn't, and he rotates them, and we
then
lose,
we
my
lose.
goodness me, the noise
Right.
on Arteta and his selection is going to be vitriolic, you know. So I think it's just a case of it's the stick at the moment to bash over there. You look at the minutes of players. Yes, I know that all the graphics are going around about Havertz and how much he runs, but that is the way that our system is as well. Like we are as successful in terms of the number of wins, the number of goals, how many few we concede because of the press, because of how we operate. Are we saying now we don't want us to play with the same intensity? Because if we drop the intensity, we will lose more games because teams will have an easier ride against us. So there's this balance that needs to be found, yes. But I do think overall that Temi, I'll let you have a final word before I move on to the next caller.
Yeah.
I just feel like that, as you said, everything that could go wrong has gone wrong, but there's not been much sympathy to Arteta in terms of that. It's been very much, well, so what? You know, we're Arsenal. So
I do have a grudge with Arteta, you know. And
I know.
mine is, and here is it. It's that how come he has too many defensive signings, but not many offensive signings? It seems.
I think in part. Do you think in part of it was because he already had Martinelli and Saka to inherit when he came in? Do you think that's part of the reason?
For me, it's not enough. Those guys were even youngsters anyway. Who's to know what's going to happen to them when they were in their mid-20s? For all we know, they could have declined. Look at Martinelli; it's not exactly as, it doesn't actually look as good as it was 2 years ago. So I think in the summer, if we remove Havertz, because Havertz, with what I'm hearing, was supposed to be a midfielder, not even a striker. So basically, he's only signed Trossard and Jesus as attackers. For me,
Havertz,
that's a bit too paltry, you know. So if he had signed a couple more attackers, probably we wouldn't be having this discussion here, you know.
The argument's always going to be who, isn't it? It's going to be who were those?
That's kind of his job, you know. But
well, you say it's his job, but like it's also the job of those behind him to deliver. We know that he's wanted attacking players. We know that he's wanted Rafinha. We know that he wanted Mudryk. We know that he wanted Sesko last summer. We know that he's wanted these players, but the club haven't been able to deliver them. So it's not like he's just been flat out said, no, I don't want any, because he has. He's wanted forwards, and they've not been delivered to him.
yeah, true. I agree. Another thing is that, and this is not on Arteta, by the way. It's on the owners of and Edu to an extent. How come we've not sold too many players for money? You know, we are losing money, so we can't even talk about this self-sustaining model when you're not getting enough from transfers. This season it's probably the best season in like 3 or 4 years where we've sold players and made profit. You know, so that has also contributed to an extent. But for me, Arteta's flaws, it could be maybe his tactics. You know, I don't like discussing tactics because, well, we don't really know anything about it. We are just sofa score merchants, and you know. But
I do like discussing tactics, but I understand where people's gripes are. But Temi, I appreciate your time and your call, mate. Thank you for coming on.
All right, thank you very much, man. Sorry for the lighting again.
Oh no, you're fine. I'm only messing with you, man. Don't worry. You're all good. You're all good, bro. Right, I really want to get our next caller on, who's going to be CBU in a second. But before we get, and the reason I want to get him on because he's been laughing like mad down below, and I'm just curious what he's laughing about. Drew, tell me what this thing you want to drop into the chat.
So we've mentioned a few times about rotation and workload and overworking players, and how do you cope with that and the demands of a top club playing their best players. So I just want to put up a stat that, and this came from Sky Sports, I can't remember what it was, maybe a month ago. But compared to Mohamed Salah's last 3 seasons, he now is covering more distance per 90 minutes. His sprints have gone up by 50%, and his pressures in the opposition third have also increased by 3 or per match. He's working harder now than he ever has, and he's over the 30 hump. And that just shows that even though Liverpool have slightly adjusted the press, it's not the same as with Klopp when it was just constant. It's more of they're now beginning to press now kind of in the mid block, but they'll still press people back into their defensive third. It's a bit different. Salah is still working incredibly. He's working the hardest he's ever worked at Liverpool by the numbers. So we know that. And despite that, he's still starting every Champions League game, and he's still starting every Premier League game. And Liverpool also, I looked it up, there's been instances where Liverpool have left them on for 90 minutes and they're winning 3-4-0. They don't need to, they still do.
Yeah.
So I do feel like, again, the same thing. It's such a fine line between how do you handle your best players and when do you give them a bit of rest. But sometimes players are just going to keep playing. And again, sometimes it's just rotten. It's just rotten luck. And I do pull back to the whole idea of the one thing Salah has in his corner is he doesn't get, the Euro he doesn't get the Euro in the summer. He got 2-3 months off last summer before the season started. I think that's probably the bit of a difference, but that's not like the club's fault. Like we can't just like stop playing our best players in a way. It's a risk every time, basically, is what I'm saying. And I do feel like that one instance, and as Drago said in the chat, the manager gets a thankless job. Sometimes it's a very, very lose-lose. He's got to make decisions that give us the best chance of winning not just matches, but trophies. And when you don't play your best players as often as you can, that automatically reduces your chance of winning trophies. So it's just so tricky. And I do feel for Arteta a bit. I do feel like it's a bit more complex than just blaming him. So
yeah, 100%. He's an easy target. It always has been. Right, let's get CBU in. How you doing, mate? You good, Joel?
I'm all right.
Another man who's not turned his light on.
I'm sorry. We seem to be having the same problem with the previous caller.
You're good, mate. I'm only messing. Tell me what you've been like. I've noticed you're down below, like laughing your head off and stuff. I'm really curious.
I was just laughing from the guy, like the previous caller. He's been stating some facts and then he goes against them just the next
enough.
point.
Tell me he's gonna get slammed. Tell me what your head's at there, mate. Talk to me.
Ooh, those breaking news. I was at work when they broke. Everything that could have gone wrong. It just did. It just did. Because we all knew as fans. That we could be facing this problem, and unfortunately we did. We at Kai Havertz. That's the last player. I love that boy because and every other Arsenal fan, they seem to be against him because I think he's the integral part of how we play Arsenal, with and without the ball. I think he's so important. Yes, he misses a lot of chances just because basically he's not a striker. We're just placing him there, doing the job, and he's been doing an excellent job. And I've got few concerns. In fact, there's since Edu's departure, there seem to be some kind of a disconnection. We need to be careful as a club not to go back to the same problems we had before Arteta, in which to having division between the fans and the club or the board. In fact,
yeah, absolutely.
Because now I think it's going back to that. The fans are somehow some of the fans are with Arteta because if you can hear Arteta on the press conferences, he's been stating that we need signings, and the board is not delivering. In a way, he cannot show the anger in front of the cameras and say, no, I told the board this, and that, because he has to be professional after all. So, and he has a contract. I know I could be like, even now, I'm thinking, how is he feeling? Arteta is a coach now, because apparently, I think we all knew, as Arsenal fans and everybody else, we knew we are just 1 or 2 injuries away from crisis. We are in a crisis even now. As Drew pointed some time ago, before tonight's game, Liverpool versus Everton. Those results can, even if Everton get the results, maybe let's say it's a draw or maybe they win because they do win at Goodison at times. It's gonna have a lot of impact in in the mentality of Arsenal players. Do we go for the title, running a risk of penning these players down already
Let me
because
ask you
we
a
don't?
question, CBU, because I think you raise it. Like Arsenal have lost, right? This season, you look
Yes.
across it and you look at you said there, everything that could go wrong has gone wrong.
Yes.
You've lost your best player for half the campaign. Ødegaard was out for 2 months with his own ankle injury. We've lost Havertz for the rest of the season. We've lost Jesus for the rest of the season. Realistically, I don't look at any January signing as being transformative. Like any realistic addition that could have been made, I don't look at solving those problems. If you know, it would have helped the floor, but it wasn't going to help our ceiling in any way. You add that to Andrew, feel free to jump in with players I've forgotten. Ben White being missing for however long he's been out for the majority of the season so far. We've had players go through illness and miss games like the Brighton match, where we had
Moreno come ridiculous. In and immediately off the get-go couldn't even start his Arsenal career the right way. So it's like, and that was almost kind of like telling of. I think that was just like the universe telling us, get ready, because this isn't the first time it's going to happen in a way. Do you know what I mean? So it's like
Calafiori's had 3 separate injuries since arriving as well. Tomiyasu, people pointing out in the chat, also been missing, and we don't expect to have him back this season. Timber has been playing off the back of an ACL injury pretty much every single minute. Rice broke his toe, as TJR points out. Like all of these things that have happened. Can fans realistically still expect Arsenal to, therefore, against the Liverpool team that have not faced these things? What realistically, do the expectations change? Because it was my expectation that Arsenal had to really push this season, really go for it in terms of title, especially with Man City falling off. But how realistic do those expectations have to be when that happens to you?
They are not realistic anymore. Even if you have to adjust your expectations throughout the season due to injuries and everything. Because
sendings off.
I believe now we have a sense of entitlement as Arsenal fans. Just because we are Arsenal, we have to win. Just because we were number 2 last season, this season we have to win. Which is not like that, because we all start at 0, and then there's still some challenges of the seasons to come. We know we have the Michael Olivers of this world and everything like that. So the expectations for me, I think, you might call me deluded, but I think that Champions League.
I get called that all the time, mate. I would. Yeah.
That Champions League, because it's a knockout competition. As soon as you are over you are on the quarterfinals, just go for the quarterfinals. Anything can happen from there. It depends on luck in terms of a draw. Who do you get on quarterfinals? I don't care who you get on semifinals. As long as you are there, you have a chance. Yeah, in terms of the league, I don't think we have a chance. We just have to fight and stay second until the top 4 is mathematically secured. Then we see next season. Because by virtue, our board has just waved a white flag on this season. So, and the most worrying thing, Tom, for me, we have the most young, ambitious manager. He's gonna get fed up of this.
I do worry about that. I genuinely worry if you're Mikel Arteta, and I know that not everyone rates him. That's fair enough. You know, entitled to your opinions. I think what he's done for Arsenal in his first job is utterly incredible. What he's taken Arsenal to after we've been left in the wilderness without ever being near a title for however many years. If he's not delivered, if he's not backed, if he's not delivered the players that he knows that he needs and wants to get Arsenal the title that we so crave, he will go. He'll go elsewhere. Can I cut
you short? Yeah. All the most important signings under Arteta, the board has never delivered them just without him interfering. Rice, he had to play a part. Ødegaard, he had to play the part. Even Saka signing the new contract, the board always rely on Arteta to do something so that they can get the deal over the line. It's like there's some sort. I wouldn't say incompetent. They are competent, but sometimes there's something missing. I don't know what's the term. There's something missing with our board, and he's not gonna be there for a long time. We might as well just back him, get what we want, and then we'll see from there.
No, I think that's really fair and genuine. CB, it's been an absolute pleasure to chat with you. Thank you so much for your phone call.
Yeah,
thanks.
Thanks for coming, buddy.
Speak to you soon. We've had a couple of people join just a second ago. I'm trying to wrap this up by about past at the absolute latest. Drew, I don't know if that's fine with you.
Yeah,
if you
totally fine.
Cool.
Yeah, that's fine.
Just because the missus is home and I don't want to get too much in trouble. So I have put into the private chat who we still had time for. I did do that earlier. So apologies if you've joined late and we can't squeeze you in. But we've got Sydney, Elliot, and Advertus. So I'm going to get on before we close. So Sydney is up first, then Elliot, then Advertus will finish off our phone in today. So Sydney, how you doing, mate? You good? You well?
Yeah, I'm good. Hi, guys. How's everyone doing?
Good,
I'm
man.
doing okay.
Good.
I mean,
Good.
as best as we can be.
Exactly. Exactly. We're trying our best. But tell me where your head's at, mate.
Well, I kind of understand everybody's frustration in terms of the transfer windows and everybody saying Arsenal should have done this, should have done that. But I think someone said we feel entitled, which is to a degree, yes. And the comparison to other clubs is quite annoying because when you compare us to Liverpool and Man City, the question I have for people to kind of look into is look at where those teams were when the club and Pep took over and what they did to get to where they are. And then look at where Arteta came in, took over. You can't expect the club to spend, I don't know, like the Chelsea, $1 billion in one summer to fix all the problems. It's not possible. It's going to take step by step. Now, someone can say that we should have fixed certain issues in the summer prior, which to a degree I can say yes, but then you also have to look at the restrictions that restricted them from doing such. Then you can also understand where the club is also coming from when you say, just buy this player, we need this player, we need that player. If the player isn't a long-term goal, is it worth bringing them in and then after 3 months be like, yeah, screw this, get this player out, and then it becomes a problem to get them out and we're back to where we were when Arteta came in, where you have players that do not want to play for the club, they're just there to sit down and take the money and then that's it. And then we come back to the situation where we're moaning and groaning about, hey, this isn't what we need and all that. So I understand the frustration, but I would say be logical in terms of how we try to pass our anger and evaluate what's going on, because the team as a whole is a good team. We can say before the summer, we could say we needed like 3 players to give us the edge to say, yes, we're winning the league or the Champions League or whatever. Now, fast forward January to next summer, we might need 6 players because we need certain positions filled up. I think someone was arguing or debating why did we spend the money on Kyle Fury instead of on attacking players. And I'm like, let's look at the injuries on the defense, right? We've lost Ben White. We have Timber, who is running mad after an injury that we don't even know if he's going to be. We might hear tomorrow, oh, Timber's out again. So Kyle Fury is an important role. He's helping a situation that we can't even foresee. And that's the thing. At the end of the day, the reason why the team is where they are now isn't even because of the attacking force. It's because of the defense, because Arteta did start from the defense to work up front. So the defense is keeping us in the position where we are now, right now. So we can't say that the signing of Kyle Fury and Mikel Merino is useless. No, not really. I don't see it that way. I see it like it's a good signing. We could have done more. Reasons for that, we don't know. We're not in the team. We can't tell what the issue is. And if one wants to ask me for the summer, why didn't we spend what we needed to spend? The answer is, I don't know, honestly, why we didn't spend that. And if we look at the striking options that we're looking out for, we were willing to spend, I believe, 60 for, what's his name? Benjamin. Unfortunately, but he said no, he wants to stay there. Are we going to force him to come? No. So we can't blame the club for not trying. They did want to, but he said no, he wants to stay back. Then you look at Victor Osimhen. His wages are ridiculously high. Now, one might say he's entitled to feel like he deserves that, but again, you have to look at, you've done certain things in the Italian league, that's fine, but we don't know what you're going to bring in the Premier League. You might be good, but you should be realistic on your wages, and then you have to look at the team you're coming to join, because people forget that we're all human beings. If, say, for example, a Nico Williams from Atletico Bilbao comes to say, yes, he wants to be making 350K, what do you expect Saka, Martinelli, Havertz, and the rest to be saying? Like, oh, he's making 350K, I'm making 100 something. How does that make any sense? when he hasn't even won the shirt. He hasn't done anything to entitle him to that. So things like this, you have to understand that it takes time, and it's not going to be easy to say yes, just throw money at this. We might tell the club, oh yeah, throw the money to this, throw the money to that. I think the Ollie Watkins situation, when I heard it at first, I was like, not really. And then I looked at the age, I looked at how much they were asking, 60 million plus for a 29-year-old. Okay, he has done it in the Premier League. Good. So how many years are we expecting to get from him? Good years. I'm not talking about average. Good. You're looking at 1 or 2. So is it worth spending 60 million on that? And then that hinders you going for your top targets like the Benjamin or the Isaac. Is that worth it? Not really. It's not. So you have to be smart with these things. Now, sometimes that can come to the detriment of yourself to say, yes, it's going to cost you a backlash. Like, example, Havertz is potentially out for the season. Makes sense. But I can't fault the club for being smart about the things they do, because we don't want to repeat what we had before Arteta. And we have to be smart. Other clubs like Liverpool and Man City, they went through stages to get to where they are, where now they can afford to just say, well, we're just going to spend, for example, they spent 80 million on, what's his name, Nunes.
Mm-hmm.
What is Nunes right now for them?
It was something like that,
yeah, and he's a squad player for them. The reason for that is they have better options in front of him, so they can afford to do that. We can't afford to do that. So that's the thing people have to understand. And understand that it's that easy.
Just be aware, Sydney, your connection's going a little dodgy. I think it's returned to us now, but I lost it for a second. You are back now. We lost you just for a second. I think what you said, you summed up excellently. Just Drew, I don't want to. I'm thinking about time as well. Drew, just on. I think Sydney's. I know I'm coming to you again with a case of. I don't know what you add to that, but I did pick up on something where Sydney said he didn't feel like there was much more that we could do. Do you think it's still those short-term things where maybe we missed a trick?
Well, first of all, get this man on the show more because he thinks like I do, so
good.
that's important. Secondly, yeah, I do feel like there probably could have been loan solutions in January where you would say maybe a loan with options where it could be for even a younger player. They could say they could come in, see what they're about, and maybe you could extend that past the season if there's an option, if they kind of make the grade. There's a few loan players that you and I have even talked about on previous shows that we could have maybe looked at. But at the end of the day, I agree with him, and I said before, the club have long-term targets that fit what they want for in terms of how we're building the project out, and I don't think they're going to spend big money on deals that would clearly railroad that idea. Getting Watkins in January would mean that we're not getting Benjamin Sesko. It means an even outside shot at Isak isn't going to happen. You could write off people like Gyökeres or whatever it would be. So I feel like that was where they were coming from with Watkins. But I do feel like in January there probably could have been 1 or 2 loan signings we could have sourced, and for whatever reason we just didn't. And I think that's the part where we can realistically say I think the club did bungle it. But in terms of not overspending on a Watkins, I don't think the club made the wrong choice with that. So I'll just kind of leave it there.
Sydney, any quick, and it will have to be quick, response to that?
Yeah, so I get the fact that we could have done something in terms of short term, but then my question would be, what are those short term options? Because as much as we want to say, yes, the club should have done this or sign this person on loan, where are the options to pick for that loan? What club is willing, especially for a striker position, what club is willing to release whatever striker they have on loan without an obligation to buy, especially when we just want them for a short term? Now, my question though is is it possible to sign a free agent right now? Because then you can tell them.
I think you can. I'm still not 100%. I tried. Text the contact to the FA earlier, but I don't think I got a response.
Yeah, I think you can, as long as you're in the period where you can register them.
I don't think they can play in the Champions League, though.
I think that's the thing. They can't play Champions League, I think, but I think they can play in Premier League. I think that's the difference.
Yeah, so that would be, to me, that would be like a best option to try. At least you bring them in for the remainder of the season. So, okay, yes, you're just here primarily for just this half of the season. You get it done and then you move. Then to me, that would be a better option. But I don't even know who is out there right now as a free agent for a striker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I mean, we talked about some of them earlier on. But then none of the names are. They're not winning you a title. let's put it that way. Sydney, thank you so much for your call, mate. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you guys.
Elliot's up next. Elliot, how you doing, mate? You good, Joel?
No, Tom, you know I'm not. How are you?
To the point.
You know I'm not. You know I'm not. Tom, we have been in conversation over the last month, and you knew full well that this day may come. And I warned you about it, didn't I? Don't call me the curse. But I said we needed someone who would come in and be a squad rotation for the aforementioned Kai Havertz. Look what happened to Kai now. Kai's injured. He's out for the season. Now what? Now we're panicking. Now we're scrambling. This is what I was warning against with the Ollie.
You know, I said we need a short-term option. I've always said that.
Yes, I know, Tom. I know, Tom. But you were saying, oh, he's not the right one, or he's not the right one, or he's not the right one. Yes, Tom, we are here now. We are here. We are at endgame now. We are at big boss time. And quite simply, it's inexcusable what this board has done to this club, handcuffing us at this time. I think all should have their performance review immediately, because what they did this January has been nothing short of cataclysmic to this club, especially for the titles that we're going for. I think we're going way too easy on this board. I think we're going way too easy on Jason Ato. How could a chief scout not be able to source some sort of talent to come in and be a rotational squad? I don't get that. I really don't get that. If he's your chief scout, he should be able to source at least 2 or 3 options that can come in right now. That hasn't happened. And for that, he should not be considered for the sporting director role. That is out of the question now. He has totally failed his audition.
I think I'm just going to read you a little excerpt from a piece I wrote this afternoon. Said, all right, it worries me that we have seen reports from the Mail suggesting that interim sporting director Jason Ato has impressed those at the club with his considered approach. While there is an element of hindsight being 2020, Mikel Arteta has hardly been quiet when it comes to public comments about how short his side are. It was on those behind/above Arteta to deliver the manager what he needed, what he asked for. And we saw players did move in the market on loan, such as Randall Kolo-Muani, Alvaro Morata, Andre Silva, but the club instead decided against mirroring or hijacking such moves themselves. I agree. Like, I don't see how on earth you can look at that window and the feeling be encouragement from the work that was not done, that should have been done. So, I don't have any disagreement with you, Elliot. I'm not in as what's the word passionate as a deliverance of it, but I can't.
It's because I was pleading with you, Tom. I was pleading with you on 2 occasions.
It's not my job.
No, it's not your job. But you knew this was coming. This day was gonna come, and it's here. In this 1 year where everybody seems to be getting into, especially in our forward line, it would happen at this time. It would just happen.
I didn't think Havertz would get a season-ending injury 8 days after Arteta says that he thought he could do it for the rest of the season.
I could have told you that, Tom. I could have told you that, Tom. Tom, I could have told you that. And here it is. I could have told you that.
Drew, what are your thoughts on Elliot's thoughts?
Well, first of all, hey Elliot, since we never spoke, nice to meet you. Also, I completely get the frustration. I do, and as we've said before on the show, I understand why we didn't go after a big signing in January, but I do feel like we had to do something. I agree with you there. I think most rational fans would agree with you and said, again, especially after Jesus went down, even if Jesus was still fit, because we know of his injury record, we still needed something in January. I think we can all agree with that. And I do feel like because we didn't get it, I would probably err on the side with you that it doesn't give me great confidence about Jason Ato moving forward as to be the sporting director moving forward. I personally didn't really see it before. I'm not as inside nearly as Tom is, of course, but there are other more seasoned people of the role that I would prefer, who have a greater track record of actually delivering in terms of how to run a club, how to build it out, how to deal with not just signings, but also sales. That's also really important because historically we have not sold well. Part of running a club in the market is being able to get max value. When you do let players go, you have to actually recoup to a value that actually can then allow you to then move forward with bigger signings. So for me, I feel I'm 100% with you. I feel like at this point, if we were to go and say Ato is the man to move us forward, that might be the most angry fans have ever seen me, and I don't ever get angry. But that would signal to me that we would be shooting ourselves in the foot. I would actually be very, very annoyed about that. I think there are better options available. I think he'd agree with you. I think he did kind of fail his audition in January.
I think my choice would be Roberto Labe. I think he would come in, and he has a lot of gravitas in the European game. I think he could work well with Arteta. And again, we can hope he can convince a man like Isak to come to the side in due course. But it's not going to happen this year. It's not going to happen for the next 2 years. I think Stesko's the guy who we will select, and for which we have had the greatest of hard-ons in order to bring him to the side. Unbelievable! It's been a 2-year Cialis dream, for crying out loud, that we bring in this dude, and now we're finally going to fulfill it.
Oh, you give him
a 2-year Cialis dream, Tom. If that's not the headline for this show, don't ever bring it back again. That is absolutely hysterical. I can't lie. Well,
Elliot, it's always a pleasure to catch up.
Just a few headlines, just quickly, Tom.
Yeah,
I don't know. Keep it clean. I'll keep it clean, Tom. Matthias Tell fail. He should have been in at this side of the sign, because at least he had the versatility to go across the front line and actually give us some sort of cover for a lone opportunity, and how we let him walk to the dark side of Seven Sisters is beyond me. Number 2, let me see. Yes, indeed, Tierney will be our new left winger. They saved him for a time, and here we are. So he'll be allowed to cross at least during this time. Number 3, KFC wasn't going to spend this year. I truly believe that this was the year of the self-sustaining model. They weren't going to spend this year, and for love nor money, they did as they pleased, and we existed in the self-sustaining model for this last year, and true to form, they did. And number 4, yes, indeed. Let me see here. Yes. We've already talked about Jason Nato in an audition. He was, he's Olabi for me. Don't ever consider Jason Nato for sporting director. That's it for me, Tom. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Elliot. Thank
buddy.
you. Love it stuff. Oh, brilliant. Drew, our last caller didn't has tapped out, it seems. So we are at a close. But thank you so much, mate, for your time and for taking the thoughts and questions of our listeners.
Yeah, no, it was great. So
that didn't sound too.
No, you know what it is, because
great.
like you know how my mind works. Like, I'm already kind of like trying to pick apart like how we're gonna go on from here, and because we have we got 2-3 minutes left. I'll say hey to G, by the way, when you leave us later. Tell her I said hello.
If it's still in the good books,
I think for me it's just we said it before, and I think everyone in the chat would probably also agree. And thanks to those of you who have been here, even if we don't agree with what you're saying. Love the support you're giving Tom.
What football's about?
Yeah, no. Keep supporting Tom. Tom is absolutely smashing, and as someone who I dubbed my little brother, I'm so proud of him for that, obviously. But I do feel like we're now at the point, and this is partly self-induced and also partly just by the timetable. The summer has to be as close to perfect as humanly possible. And if we don't get that summer, I think maybe, and because I saw you chatting about it in the box, that for the first time, I would be concerned about how long Arteta would be here for. Because if we genuinely can't get his management team what they deem necessary for us to continue to move that project forward, you're right. We're a big club, but there are bigger clubs than Arsenal. And you're right. If Ancelotti's time with Real Madrid is only but so short-lived, that would be the worry, obviously. I don't know. So that for me is kind of where my mind is at currently. Like, how long do we have with Arteta if we're going to keep kind of doing this? And it's one. I think John mentioned this. Friend of the pod, John mentioned this. I think previously in other chats where I can't remember, but by default, a lot of the times lawyers are very risk averse, and when you have a lot of lawyers who are when they have.
I've been on a night out with John. I wouldn't say he's very risk averse.
Well, John is not risk averse, but the average. I mean, I know quite a few lawyers, and the average lawyer would probably be risk averse. So when you have lawyers in positions like this where risk reward is constantly being gauged, I think a lot of times they will often, unfortunately, err on the side of caution. Sometimes you do have to take a risk. I think we can agree with that. I think January was the time to take it because it was a necessary risk. Unnecessary risks, obviously you can dodge, but when it's a necessary risk, sometimes you just have to kind of bite the bullet and hope for the best. So hopefully we're not next week looking at, Trossard out for the season, because who even knows where we're going to go from there. But long term, the summer's absolutely vital, and if we get it wrong, then who even knows what happens at that point. That's kind of where my head's at currently. But yeah, no, I had a great time coming on. It's been a minute since you and I had a good chat and chatting to the Buddy in the Box. So thanks, guys.
Did Elliot say message to the fluffers? I think I missed that. Is that what he said? When it was having his thing earlier, message to the is that what he said? Oh dear, that's hilarious. Oh goodness gracious. You always rely on some entertainment. No, Drew, I echo your thoughts, mate. Thank you for coming on. It's always a pleasure to catch up, and you've got things in the pipeline, right?
Yeah. Like I said,
is that something you can talk about, or are you still?
No, I can. So yeah, I've got. I'm working on a bit for One Football about looking at why Tomasz Rzycki makes the most sense for us moving forward. And
I'll send you my piece if you like.
No, it'll be different from yours, but you and I, as usual, think similarly. But I think, especially off the back of what just happened this window, it makes even more sense to kind of relitigate and rediscuss that particular topic. For those who are in North America or care, I've also got a bit coming out about Jonathan David, but that's separate. But yeah, just in general, just enjoying time at One Football since I've arrived there. So yeah, it's been good.
Smash it, mate.
Yeah, thanks, buddy.
Thank you, listeners, for tuning in. Hope you've enjoyed this. Spontaneous phone-in show. I thought, we kind of needed to get it done, considering the magnitude of the news that hit today. And as always, either after a defeat or we've discussed some pretty crap news. Please do look after yourselves. And if you need to take a step away from football or watching shows or whatever, please do look after yourselves. Football's just a game. Some of the comments, some of the tweets, some of the posts I've seen today have been borderline psychotic, so really genuinely do look after yourselves because it's just a game and there are far more important things in your lives than this. So don't work yourselves up too much. And if those of you that are sticking around, I'll be with you tomorrow morning at 8 a.m, of course. And press conference is early on Friday. So you'll get probably a pre-recorded show if I can nail down a guest tomorrow at some stage. I think I'm also on TalkSport show tomorrow with our good buddy Clive, so look out for that. Plenty more to come in the reaction to the greatest transfer window of all time. Thank you for listening. I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy and respectful. Make sure you're following Drew on Twitter. Not on Twitter, on Blue Sky.
I mean, I have a Twitter, but I just rarely use it anymore. But
what's the Blue Sky?
It's Geechee Kid if you want to find me on Twitter. Blue Sky, I'm curating to high heaven because I cannot deal with toxic negativity on Blue Sky. That's my haven away from Twitter. So,
and you can find Drew on Blue Sky at Supply and Demand.
I hate you so much. Thomas. The worst.
Oh, you can block people.
Oh dear. But you can find me there at Supply and Demand Drew on Blue Sky. Yeah, there you go.
There you go. Much love. Speak to you soon. And as always, up the Arsenal.